You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is the Swedish horror film Let the Right One In, directed by Tomas Alfredson, released January 26th, 2008. It's probably Thomas, because Tomas is more of a, Latin pronunciation, and this is Sweden. So,
I think you're right, though.
Maybe it is. I
think you're right with Tomas. Yeah, I think Tomas is right. Let's go with it. We're gonna go with
different languages, different. I'm gonna struggle so hard with maybe some of character names and pronunciations and actors and things.
I'm here.
It happens when we do movies like this.
I'm here for you. I did a little bit of research. I wrote down some phonetic pronunciations of different names. As long as we stick mostly to the characters, I think we might be okay.
All right.
If we shift, I don't know. We're gonna do our best with it. I love when we do foreign films because it's not something that we do all the time. It's just a once in a while thing. So I'm really excited to dive into this one. It's very serious, though. Mm-hmm. This film is based on a book, and it's. Well, Peg, why don't you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, we will talk more in detail later, but before we get to that detail, this is one of those episodes I would like to go ahead and offer up a content warning off the top. We'll get to them when we get to them in our notes, but if you are a little more reserved about hearing certain things or certain topics will bother you, you get your warning now. We will be talking about a lot of sexual trauma, sexual abuse, sexual identity, gender identity, things like that, as result, as refers to children in this movie even. So it's going to get a little dark and a little, iffy in those areas, that we're going to try to do our best to deal with it, gently and professionally, but definitely it is a part of this film, and it is definitely part of the source material. And while breaking down this movie and looking at certain themes and things in it, those things will come up. And so I just want to make you aware of that. So yeah, just want to make sure that, make sure to get that off at the beginning. So if it's something that definitely really bothers you, maybe skip this episode.
Yes, definitely. But there is something special about this episode, Pake. It is the first movie in our double dip. We are back with the double dip. Pake's brainchild from last season has returned. We're going to do Let the Right One In, and we're also next week going to do Let Me In, which is the American remake directed by Matt Reeves.
Yes, which stars, again, it's 2010, so much younger versions of some actors that still do some really good stuff today, because they got Chloe Grace Moretz and Cody Smith-McPhee.
Yeah.
So definitely, I have seen that one. This is it's very similar to our last double dip when we did Dawn of the Dead last season, where Daphne had seen the older version, I had seen the newer version, and we hadn't seen the others. And it's the same way this way. Daphne has seen this one before. I have seen the remake, and we have not seen the other ones. So that'll be cool. So next week when we get into Let Me In, that's one that I will be revisiting and Daphne will be seeing for the first time. So
yes, I think it's fun though when it works out this way, because we each can bring that familiarity. Although I have to tell you, there were things in this movie that I did not remember. Mm-hmm. And now watching it again and then doing the research behind the scenes, it's a much darker and deeper story than what I thought. And one thing I do want to point out is this is based on the 2004 novel of the same name that was written by John Ajvide Lindqvist, who also did the screenplay for this film. So it's pretty true, I believe, to his vision because he was involved in the making of the movie.
Yeah. Again, he doesn't go into as much detail on backstory and things that, again, we may lightly focus on a little bit in future points and future, conversation. But I mean, there's definitely, you can see where certain things that were done in this movie and choices that were made, knowing the backstory of his novel just kind of makes those things make a little bit more sense and clears those up. And you can see that they are definitely nods to the source material, and that kind of helps explain maybe some of the character things that are in this movie.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate when the novelist is involved with the movie making, because I think it brings a certain level of credibility to the story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he was a fan of this adaptation, so I'm definitely interested in where our conversation will take us today. But we are going to break into this like we always do with some behind-the-scenes information. This movie was filmed in and around Stockholm, Sweden. As I already said, it's based on a 2004 novel of the same name. We talked about the remake already. The budget for this movie was $4.5 million. It grossed $11.2 million. It was 114 minutes long. And Pake, it's time for the synopsis.
A very, very surface level, basic synopsis that gives nothing away. Oscar, an overlooked and bullied boy, finds love and revenge through Ely, his peculiar new neighbor.
Yes.
Yeah, very peculiar.
Yes, she is.
That's one way to describe Ely.
She was, you know what? As dark as she was also a little sassy at times.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the way that she talked to Oscar, especially at near the beginning of the movie. I mean, she tells him we can't be friends, and I liked the little bit of dark sassiness, I guess, that we got from her.
Yes. And I'm going to, because you've already done it already, and I'm going to do it too, so I'm going to throw this out here. When referring to Ely a lot in our notes, especially when what we know through most of the movie before some reveals that are still kind of under wraps, using she, her pronouns, totally acceptable through a lot of this, because, I mean, I think we will go through that when we get to later things. Maybe we'll change things up a little bit or talk about those. But the character of Ely, and I may try to go a little more neutral when I can, but it's going to just be whatever happens to come out of my mouth. The way that this movie and the story is told, I don't think it really is that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But again, you will see why when we get to those things.
Well, and the story takes place in like the 80s, which was a very different time, as we know. Especially, I mean, even since this movie came out, things have changed a great deal. So seeing that the story was so much earlier, and now where we are in 2022, it's even more, it's kind of groundbreaking. I think this movie and some of the things that came out of it, it's groundbreaking. Especially since like a lot of the themes are really what the moral, I guess, but what the point of the novel was, and being written in 2004 and really tackling a lot of those topics. I'm impressed with that. It's like that's really cool for something of that time to go this deep with a lot of these things and really make you think. Yeah. Because it's not just Ely. There's things about Oscar that So it's really interesting. Yeah, it's definitely not something I'm interested in watching. Matt Reeves' version of this, because I understand it's a little bit different, and I want to see what he envisioned. Yeah, when he directed the movie.
And again, with that one, it will be a rewatch. But I've literally only seen it once when it first came out back in 2010. Yeah. So, I don't remember exactly how much. I think a lot of the themes and a lot of those things are not touched on and are ignored. Yeah. So I don't think it's as true. It maybe takes more of just kind of a boy befriends vampire and she helps him out with things, like, kind of. Yeah. But again, I've only seen it once 12 years ago, so I don't remember if there are more of those themes that are underlining. Going back and rewatching it next week, I might be surprised with seeing some of these themes still actually pop up. I don't know. So yeah, I'm curious too.
I was really surprised because I didn't remember some of this. And like I said, I've only seen it too. Like you, I saw this movie once. I have not seen it since. But it definitely... We've never shied away from a movie that made you think or covered topics that were a little bit sensitive. We've always, I know that we have lots of fun and we laugh and we have a great time with some movies. This is one that is going to be quite solemn, I guess, in most ways, but I'm sure Pake...
It won't stop me from having a few jokes here and there.
No,
Nothing
it won't. It won't. And we might need it to break up this film and talking about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of my jokes are focused more on like the first half, and then when things get really serious, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm a lot more into the movie as well, but yeah. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into it. And as we usually do, of course, talking about characters, I feel like even though kind of the main character of the story and the themes is Ely, I feel like we have to go with what it centers most around, who is the character of Oscar.
Yes. In many ways, they're intertwined, but they also have their own arcs at the same time. They're kind of parallel, I think, but they're parallel and connected, but I would have to agree Oscar is definitely like the focal point of the story.
Yeah. And I like that they take you on a journey with him, but also the way you view him. Because you kind of become more enamored and more connected to him as the movie goes. When you're first introduced to Oscar and stuff, you kind of see him, maybe not in the same light, but that his bullies do and stuff. But but in a way you kind of do. I mean, the first thing we see of him is he's literally just like holding a knife, wearing nothing but his tighty whities. And he's being creepy. I mean, he's just like talking to nobody in the room. And you squeal like a pig, and he's being a creepy, weird kid. And then you see him at school, like, yeah, he's weird. And he likes these very kind of dark, macabre things. He's like keeping scrapbooks of like serial killers and murderers and fantasizing about attacking and killing these bullies, which are like, I mean, yeah, they're terrible kids. They're terrible people to him. And so you get that. But like, it's kind of harder to connect to him at first because you're like, I mean, this kid is kind of a little off. He's very, very strange and very dark, and you don't know what he's capable of.
No, you don't. They have a guest speaker at his school who's talking about what sounds like an arson fire that resulted in someone dying. And Oscar raises his hand because he knows how to tell the difference between if the person died of asphyxiation or if they were killed before because of smoke in the lungs. I'm not sure that he, under general I'm not sure that he should know that.
Yeah, as we see, he's a pretty good kid overall. But yeah, these opening scenes and the first things you see of him, I'm like, as somebody who works with kids like around his age and these things, I'm like, that's one you keep an eye on. He's on a little list that you keep with you. Just like, we'll see how things go. He needs support.
He needs support. He needs monitoring. He's one that you've got to, like you said, he's one you've got to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Which is that a common thing in Swedish elementary schools and middle schools that you just have somebody come in and talk about murder and drugs? Like, I don't.
There are things about this movie that would never fly in a story about American school. Right. So I'm, like I said, probably this weekend going to watch Let Me In because I'm so curious as to how they portrayed the character in that film, because this Oscar, I mean, the actor, he did such a wonderful job. He did. I mean, it's not, I mean, it was a great performance. Too bad he didn't go on. He hasn't done very much since.
It seems like I did, and the little bit of research I did on casting, like most all of the kids in this movie didn't really go on and do anything after this.
No. Do you think they were traumatized?
I kind of wonder they might have been.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, because Lena Lee Anderson, who plays Ely, she hasn't either since like 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and then I think like Connie and the other kids that I never even got their names. I don't remember, like his two little cronies. I just kept calling them Connie's cronies. Like I think even like those, like they're all like they don't really have pictures or credits or anything on IMDb. Like none of them have really gone on to do much of anything.
No.
Acting wise, I don't know what they're doing in their personal lives. Hopefully, they're living wonderful lives, staying far away from scary movies and enjoying things. I hope they're doing good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they were great. The acting in this was fantastic. They just haven't done anything.
Yeah.
But they're young enough that maybe we'll see them, you know, we could see them again sometime. They may just be taking a break. A long break.
Yeah, like 15-year break. But, you know, it happens.
Yeah. And Oscar carries around this knife a lot of the time. And you just wonder, because at first you don't get to see how the bullies bully him or what they do or how they are to him. But then over time, it's like an onion. You see they put his pants in a urinal.
Yeah.
They slice the side of his face. And he never fights back.
Yeah.
He just takes it every time. He walks home wearing his gym shorts in the snow.
Yeah. That really sucks. Those kids are the worst, right?
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah. Oh, man. And yeah, when he first meets Ely, that's while he's out there like fantasizing about hurting Connie while, you know, holding that knife and like talking trash to a tree and then stabbing it and, you know, you know, and then that's when she walks in and she's just like, okay. But she's friendly to him, even though she at that point says we can't be friends.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she's just looking out for him based off of what she is. But he wins her over time. Really just, I think it's not necessarily anything he was doing. It's just her own sense of loneliness and needing companionship after, I mean, if we go by source material and books, Ely has been 12-year-old vampire since the 1700s.
It's a long time.
That is definitely more, not less, 12 years old.
Yeah. It's a very long time. And you have to wonder how many times she's gone through a similar experience to this. Like how many people she's met over time. She's never really gotten close to anyone except her caretaker, which I believe it's pronounced Hakon.
Yeah, don't know.
Yeah.
Because they never say it, so
no,
they don't.
And he's a very odd man himself. Like, he goes to the local pub and, I mean, they don't seem bad. They all seem okay. They try to talk to him. One of them tries to talk to him, and he just doesn't speak and leaves. He's focused on the prime directive, which is getting sustenance for Ely.
Yeah, and we don't know how long he's been with Ely, which then leads to the really dark thought of, like, how happy is the ending of this movie, actually? It was like, has Hakon, like, been with her since he was young? And, like, so, you know, we jump around all over the place. So I'm going to the very end of the movie. I mean, when we see Ely and Oscar, like, kind of running off together, it's like, is that his fate? Is that what goes for Oscar?
Yeah.
To be there for her until he grows old and dies. Like, you know?
Yeah. Or pours acid on his face. And
right.
That's a whole other part that we have to talk about. I get why they did it. It's just, yeah. It was a real rough job for him. And she is a bit of a diva about it. She gets mad at him if he doesn't bring back her blood that she needs.
Yeah.
I mean, we see this. Oscar doesn't see this. He doesn't know, but we see this side of Ely's story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the term familiar because that's the very vampire lore term to call him.
Yeah. There were some tropes in this that I think were...
Oh, definitely.
Good. I mean, or definitely ones we've heard. They're tropes that we've heard them before. We've seen some of this before.
Oh, yeah.
But the way that it was carried out was a little... I mean, it's super creepy. Hakon goes into the woods, kills the boy, hangs him up, and I don't know why he thought it was okay to do in the middle of what... Was it a park? Was it the woods? But he's got this system. He's got this cool briefcase with all of his supplies in it. He goes out there to do it, and then he gets caught. But he hears them coming and runs away and returns with nothing. Yet he had a jug with blood in it. Why didn't he take it?
Oh, because even when he's like on the train, that's what you kind of see is he like opens up the like box and realizes he left the container there. And I'm like, how long has he been doing this? Because he's not very good at it.
I know. I kept thinking, are you a noob? I mean, you're not very good at this. The time that he does it, he screws up every time.
Right.
I think partially he's tired of doing it. I think he's exhausted by it. And he does notice Oscar and Ely's connection, and he tries to put a stop to it. He just basically says, don't go see the boy. Don't go see the boy tonight. She's not going to listen.
Yeah.
She's going to do what she wants.
Yeah, we could talk about him more later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was saying, Oscar and Ely, he kind of wears her down is not the right word, because again, I think it's more her wearing herself down on him to where finally, I mean, she's just lonely. And so the Rubik's Cube scene, she just shows a little bit of curiosity, and then they can talk about that, and then leaves it for him solved, which he's super happy about. And they have these conversations, giving him advice about you're gonna have to hit back hard, which sends him into like going to weightlifting to try to bulk up so he can fight back against his bullies. All these kind of things, which I noticed in a lot of these scenes where they're sitting outside in the courtyard. I was like, okay, Oscar, my dude, we are going to have to work on this whole snot thing, invest in some tissues.
Yes. Maybe
just keep one of those little handy packs of Kleenexes in your jacket pocket at all times, because this boy is full of snot.
Yes. He is. It's visible at all times.
Yes.
It is. But I think Ely senses his compassion, that even though he is different, they're building a connection. They hang out outside at night. And he even asks her, well, aren't you cold? And she says she's forgotten how to be cold. So I feel like Oscar's following this trail of breadcrumbs. But he's not paying attention to them, but he is paying attention. Or he's just ignoring them.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's him that asks her the vampire question. Yeah. He puts it all... She doesn't tell him anything. He puts it all together pretty easily. Just from the time that they spend together. He's like, I guess, this kid likes the dark and macabre things, and apparently in the universe of this movie, vampires are definitely a thing in lore and in pop culture, and people know about them. To where... he sees all of the things, whether it's her, definitely after he cuts his hand and she's lapping up the blood off the floor, and then kind of changes the way she looks and her aggressiveness and then runs off. But I mean, even like the little things, only coming out together, at night, only showing up at night. And the way that, I mean, he buys her candy and she does eat one just out of a kindness to him, and immediately it makes her sick. If you know vampire lore well enough, vampires can't eat food. No. It will harm them.
It makes them very sick, and they have to upchuck. It's just what happens.
Yeah. Or even based off like the title of the movie and the story is she only comes in to visit him if she's been invited in first. There's these little things that are tropes and lore and vampires that I think he's just making all these little mental notes of. Like you said, he's putting them together, whether he realizes it or not. It's all building this case in his head.
Yeah. And there were a few times that she was starving when they were hanging out. And I felt like she fought urges at times.
Mm-hmm.
But she did care about him. But then she couldn't trust Hakon to bring her food, so she had to go out and feed on her own. And that's where things really start to go downhill for her.
Yeah.
We get to see Oscar. You know, he's been going to this weight training, and he's bulking up, I guess.
He's still got a long way to go.
Yeah, he does.
Like, I was like watching like the one scene that you just see him laying on the bench with the weights. I'm like, my dude, that is... It's a start.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not
but
getting...
You're struggling with, like, the bare minimal, man.
Yeah.
He is a scrawny little thing, though.
He is. Yeah, so when Ely has to go out on her own to feed, I'm tying this in because it actually connects to when Oscar finally stands up to his... Because I like the way that they filmed this. When they all go to the ice skating, like the school, it's like a school trip, and they all go to this pond to skate. Well, at one point, Ely has killed Yoke, who the town, I mean, they all said he was a good man, he helped everybody. Yeah. So it makes you feel just a little bit bad. And Gesta actually sees it go down, but he thinks it's an animal that's doing it. And the body just has to be taken care of. So Hakon goes and drags the body away, which I have to tell you, the dummy they used for the body, that was bad. Like, when it went into the water.
It's like I accepted it because I was like, well, I mean, he's supposed to be like drained of all of his blood, so like waxy look kind of makes sense, I guess. But there's like no facial features whatsoever.
I honestly thought it was like one of those resuscitation Annie dolls. Yeah. That's what I thought it looked like
a CPR dummy. Yes,
that's what I thought it looked like. I'm like, oh, that's yeah, it's one of the CPR dummies. But at the same time that they happen to go ice skating at this place where Hakon has dumped the body, and he didn't do he's not a very good familiar.
He's terrible at his job. He really is.
He is not good. Like, he's like halfway doing things.
Yes.
He throws the body in, but doesn't bother to see if it goes anywhere. He just leaves it there.
Yeah, he like uses that stick that Oscar picks up, which I think is what kind of reveals the body, is because the stick was like holding it down in the ice a little bit, but then you pull the stick out and it's like, and here I am.
Oh, and the two little kids, the way they shot this, that I thought this was very cool. At the same time that Oscar hits Connie with the pole, which I cheered. It's like, finally.
Shit out of his ear. Man.
I was so happy. I'm like, you're finally listening to Ely that you have to fight back. Good job. But at the same time, these two little kids who needed to go to the bathroom were sent over to pee and make yellow snow, which we're not going to go there. That's basically what they were told. And they're screaming from Connie on one side and then screaming children on the other, so you don't really know who they're going to pay attention to, because it's these two little kids screaming and Connie screaming. And so, of course, the body was found. But on the flip side, Connie gets his ear. I don't even know what to say about it.
Just decimated his ear.
And Oscar gets in trouble and goes home, and his mom... His parents are separated. And I don't think his mom is a bad mom. Like, she seems like she's okay.
She just seems very busy.
Yes.
I mean, because I think she, like, works at, like, a hotel, which means, like, overnight. And so I'm just putting that together based on, like, what she seemed to be wearing when he got home from school after that. Is it kind of looked like a hotel outfit or something?
Yeah. So she just gives him the phone, and it's his dad on the phone. His dad's just saying, "Are you okay?"
I know. I love it. It's like, she seems really mad, and then you don't hear his dad on the phone, but it's like, I have a feeling he's pretty proud of his son for standing up for himself.
I think he is too. He seems to have a good relationship with his dad. Like when he goes up there, they go on the snowmobile together, and he's pulling him behind on this sled, and he just seems happy there.
Yeah.
And we only see him there twice. He goes for this visit, and then he comes back home. Then he goes there another time, but he hitchhikes back.
Yeah.
And it was kind of awkward, and I'm not sure what was going on.
Yeah, they didn't spell anything out. What I'm assuming it is, and especially, at first I was like, would it be that? And then I was like, I don't know. But then after looking into a lot of the themes of the novel and a lot of what he's trying to tell, I think it is just kind of an underlining way of saying, like, that's probably why his parents are separated, is they realized they weren't, very compatible with each other, because I think it seems like his dad has himself a new boyfriend.
Yep.
And so that's what they're going to do. And then, I think Oscar's like, okay, whatever. If that's the case, he's like, well, I'm going to give them some space and I'm going to go back home.
Yep.
Because it's a little awkward for me. I don't need to be here right now. Seems like they got plenty of time to spend with themselves.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they didn't do anything to make him leave. He just goes home. And I think it was good that he went home. Because Ely really needed him at that point, too.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when he goes back home, is when he confronts Ely and, stays with her, and then that's where the whole vampire thing, which, again, he seems pretty okay with it. Like, not in a way that, like, he doesn't condone it and he doesn't like it, because he's like, you stole that money from the people you killed. Like, he does make it known that he doesn't like that fact. But it's not freaking him out, and he has no problem still being friends with her.
Yeah, no, he seems okay with it the whole time. I mean, she has twice said to him, I'm not a girl. Because they have this conversation when she comes into his room and lays with him. They lay together on the bed. She's just very much wants them to stay in the moment of how things are, but he wants to go steady. Like, he's talking about going steady, and he even asked her, how did you get here? And she said, I flew, and he doesn't even flinch about it. Like, it's like, okay, his little mental typewriter is adding that to the list. And this is after she went to see Hakon at the hospital, because he blundered killing a boy and poured acid on his face. And she goes to see him, and he allows her to feed on him before he falls out. He then drops and falls out the window.
It's kind of his last act of service.
Yeah. Is he's lunch.
He can't get any of the other victims, right? So might as well
fine,
I'll do it myself.
And then she goes to see Oscar and lays with him. And she finally agrees that they can go steady, and they do hold hands while they're laying there. But she tells him again, I'm not a girl.
Yeah. Which I like. I took note of and liked the little moment there. Yeah, it was his, we go steady. Like, will you be my girlfriend? She says, well, I'm not a girl. And instead of like, oh my God, what do you mean? You know what I mean? His response is really like, okay, well, can we still go steady anyway?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care. All he knows is whatever this person is, I like them. I have feelings for them. And so I want to be with them.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of the themes that we talk about a little bit, that this author and this story is really trying to tell.
Yeah, it's about caring for the person and not what sex they are. Or, it's having that connection with someone so deep that it doesn't matter. Those barriers or perceived barriers don't exist. All that matters is you want to spend time with that person.
Yeah, it is. And again, this is partially one of the things I was like, I'll give a little warning, and I will when we go deeper into it.
Yeah.
But in that note, I will say, I mean, really the original story and what the theme is it is, and this is the way I kind of took it and wrote it down, is like, it is a look at sexuality in younger people trying to figure out who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Ely is forced to stay stuck in a place of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And so, like, again, that is quite a topic from a novel from 2004, and I really appreciate that it goes there.
Yeah.
Because that's a big part of this. So, you know what, I'll go ahead and break into that a little bit, because you mentioned there is a scene kind of in this moment where they're together, where out of his typical 12-year-old boy curiosity, he knows that, you know, Ely is changing in the other room after, again, he tests her with this, you know, what happens if you come in and I don't invite you in? And then he gets the answer to that, and it's pretty brutal, pretty intense.
And he's very upset.
Yeah.
Like, he's so, like, the horror that he, in his face, because this is the person he cares about.
Mm-hmm. And she was willing to go through that pain, and possibly could have died, just to show him, like, there's this trust, there's this bond. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to know? Okay. And then I think she trusts him to take care of that and fix that when he does. Okay, you can come in, you're invited.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, then so she showers off, cleans up, and then she goes to change. And yeah, like I said, typical 12-year-old boy curiosity. He's like, oh, I'm going to take a peek. And so we get this scene, and I was like, what is the point of showing Ely naked? And now I say that, if there's people who listen to this episode that don't watch the movie, it was a mannequin that was used. Don't worry.
Yeah, they would never have shown.
Yes, they used a mannequin, but it did send me down a rabbit hole a little bit because of what was shown, because it looked different, is one way to put it. So again, I did not know this about the source material, because I believe, again, it's pretty ignored in the American version as much as I remember. Go figure, for American adaptations of things. But it is heavily explored in the novel. So basically, yeah, earlier when Ely says things to Oscar, like, I'm not a girl. And I like that, you know, he, again, like I said, rolls with it, being like, okay, well, just go study anyway. Because the novel focuses, I'll talk about Oscar first. Because, I'll talk, the backstory of Ely is kind of presented as a pretty, beautiful, young peasant boy named Elias, in the 1700s, who was taken in by a not so good person, quite a sick individual, for reasons, and I'll leave it at that. And at one point in that, Elias is castrated and turned into a vampire. There's whatever, one thing leads to another. I'm not going to dig in fully to what the story is, how things happen, but that's what that is. And so what we see in the film, in that scene when Oscar is sneaking that peek, there are the scars of castrated male genitalia. Mm-hmm. So Ely was a young boy who was castrated under terrible circumstances, and then just over these years has kind of taken the presenting and form of a girl, because it's easier for them, for Ely. But then even then, she doesn't refer to herself as a girl, and then again, it explored more in the novel where I saw where there's like, oh, so you were a boy, and he's like, well, I'm not a boy either. I'm nothing. I'm me. I'm what I am. And it's this very kind of non-binary thing is what it's going with that. And so the novel then follows more with Oscar and his feelings. Again with this, because he's not scared that his crush, the person that he is romantically kind of enamored and finds himself having feelings for, he's not so much scared that they're a vampire, but more of how he's going to be received by other people and his own feelings, because he's having these feelings for another boy. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of these different things that the novel and those themes that it really takes, like I said, into like sexuality and who you are as a person in respect to who you love and what those feelings are and how that matters, or, you know, sexual identity, or your own personal identity and how you identify and how it matters or doesn't matter. And again, those themes are really interesting. So just seeing the movie, it's a very quick scene and a weird scene that doesn't make a lot of sense until I was confused enough to was like, I have to see what this is about. And then
exactly, me too.
Yeah, and then seeing a lot of this backstory and these themes, I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah. I feel like it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Even though it was still, 2004 novel, I feel like the situations that were built into it by the author were really, this is timely, especially now, because I feel like we're living in a time where people are working hard to make it the norm to embrace people, no matter what their sexual orientation or the color of their skin, like not having a bias, just accepting.
Yeah.
And I think it's timely. I didn't realize until I watched it, because I don't remember that part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I watched it, all I can think now is I need to read the book. I want to read the book. I really do. I want to dig more into it.
Yeah.
As depressing as it is.
Yeah, because a lot of that backstory and certain things, it goes way more into detail on. And so if somebody is interested in going that route and reading the book, the warnings that I give on the lightly talk about here, it gets very deep and very disturbing, I think, in some of that source material for sure.
Yeah.
It really gives you a picture of everything that Ely went through.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's so disturbing and distressing and sad.
For even, I don't have to go into it too much. I mean, even like the character of Hekon is not the greatest character. There's reasons that he has Ely with him and reasons about his choice of victims that he picks for her. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I definitely am going to read the book to get more of the backstory, because I've looked into it enough to know what some of the basic things were.
Yeah.
Like stuff that we've talked about here.
And as far as Oscar, I have more notes, but it all ties to the ending of this movie and the last couple of scenes. And I feel like a lot of that is very much Oscar and Ely together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have any other kind of extraneous Oscar notes, then I think maybe it's a good time to kind of jump over to Ely and talk more her and her story before they tie together there at the end.
Yeah. I'm down to do that. Let's go ahead.
Mm-hmm. All right. And a lot of these I probably have talked about a little bit. I'm talking about them kind of getting closer as friends with the Rubik's Cube. And, at first how she doesn't want to get close to him. But I thought, she's probably starved for companionship and positive interaction almost as much as she's literally starving to feed when she meets him. Which afterwards she does feed on this poor sucker walking under the bridge.
Yeah. I'm wondering if there's more in the book, because in the movie they didn't portray him as being a bad guy.
Yeah, I think it's the same as far as I know. It's not that she's like some kind of vengeful, hunting down bad men who do bad things. It's literally she has to feed. And so he was just the unfortunate person who was there, wrong place, wrong time.
And Gesta sees all of it.
The cat daddy.
The cat daddy. Oh my goodness, those cats. There's a scene with those cats we'll talk about after we get through talking about Oscar and Ely. There's a scene with those cats. Because Ely chooses to feed off of Virginia, who's another... Is it this friend group that she doesn't like? Because I swear they're all friends.
Yeah, it's just all these... Because I think it's just all these people that kind of live right there in that area, in these apartments. Yeah. And then they meet up, like, nightly, almost, it seems, to have drinks and hang out.
Yeah. So she feeds off Virginia, who's just had a fight with her husband and is walking up the hill by herself. And then there's this terrible noise, and her husband runs up the hill and sees that she's bleeding, chases Ely away, kind of. And they take Virginia to the hospital, but she's never the same after. She's never the same.
No. We'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah, I like a lot of the effects. I'll talk, outside of character, but just even the effects, what they did with Ely throughout this movie that I thought were really cool. Making Ely look really rough when she hadn't fed for a while.
Yeah.
Because after Yuka, I think is how they were pronouncing it. I try to listen. I listen to what they're saying. I try to pick up. But yeah, she looks great the night after.
Yeah.
When she's talking with Oscar. But then again, her eyes start sinking back in, and she just kind of looks a little more tired and sickly. It doesn't take long to kind of wear off. And I think they did a really good job with the way that they changed her, physical appearance.
Yeah, she looks older and haggard.
Mm-hmm.
Yet still like this very small body, but her face looks like it's aged.
Mm-hmm.
And she just really looks rough. I mean, Alma, when she is in the tree, just before she feeds on Virginia, she looks animalistic. She's breathing really heavy, and then she goes and feeds, and she's better.
That's when she attacks Virginia or Genia. And I think it's because it's after that moment where, Oscar just wanted to do this friendship blood bond, not realizing the effect it would have on Ely, and that facade of sweet neighbor girl kind of drops for a second, and he sees the real Ely, and so she runs off, and she's kind of in this feeding frenzy mode, and she has to get away from Oscar.
Yeah,
and that's
she doesn't want to. Yeah, she doesn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want to feed on him, but the blood makes her.
She's got to do something, and that's when she's up in that tree, and there's that animalistic kind of version of her, and that's when she attacks Genia, and I think it's just she has to kill. She has to do something.
But she doesn't finish Genia off. She just feeds for a little bit, but it still has an effect. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But she seems better once she's fed. Like you said, she's better. Oh, but it's so sad because she tells Oscar she has to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a sad moment.
Yeah, but there's a lot of back and forth because she does that twice.
Yeah.
Where she's like, I have to go. Because there's that little note she leaves for him. It's either I go and I live or I stay and I die.
Oh, yeah.
But then when he goes to see her, she's there. She hasn't decided to leave. That I think she does feel this kinship to him, and it's hard for her to go. It's...
It's that little note that he's carried with him when he's at his dad's. He reads that, and then he hitchhikes to go home.
Yeah. Which randomly, jumping back to when she went to the hospital, I liked kind of her way of getting the information of where Hakan was, and then going up, because I was so worried for that poor nurse for a second when she walked outside. I was like, don't. But then I was like, oh no, she's just in the background. She's just vampire climbing up the wall. It's all right, we're good. Go back inside where you're safe, lady, please.
Yeah. Honestly, it reminded me of I think it's Nightcrawler from the X-Men.
Uh-huh.
The way she was climbing up.
Which he's played by in the first class kind of stuff, Cody Smith-McPhee, who plays the Oscar character in the remake.
Oh my gosh. Connections.
Yeah.
Did not know it was going to go there when I said
it. I didn't either, but I'm a nerd and I make connections like that. But yeah, those I talked about, some of the physical appearance notes. Again, after his swimming class, she's there kind of hanging out at the school. And there's this little secret hangout area that they go to. And again, those little effects, and it's dark when they walk in. You see her eyes glowing in the dark.
Yes.
And then when he flips the light switch on and you see her eyes change and morph and adapt to the light. was like, oh, that's so creepy, but it's so cool.
But it's so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. And that's, of course, when he wants to do this cool thing, which is, blood bond them together, and it goes horribly wrong. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we've talked about a lot of their interactions, because those tie into those themes and stuff we were talking about earlier. So then this last time, that she says she has to go is after Laka goes into her apartment to kill her. He's kind of put all these things together. It's like, Mr. Cat Daddy over here said that it was her that attacked my friend, and then I saw her attacking my wife. So I know, and now my wife has turned into something different and ended up setting herself on fire to die and get away from this pain. So
yes. And we've talked about all of that except for the one bizarre part with the cats.
Yeah. But yeah, so Laka is just on that like warpath. He's like, all right, she has to go. And luckily Oscar was there. I'm assuming, is he like the landlord or like owner of these places? Because he just like had keys to get anywhere he needed to go, it seemed.
I don't know.
I was like, maybe
his place did seem more posh than some of the others.
Yeah. So maybe. Yeah, but he goes after that, and yeah, Oscar's there and is able to alert Ely, and she takes care of the problem.
Yep.
He just kind of goes to the other room and lets it happen. He's like, sorry, dude, that's on you.
I thought he might do it. And then, because I couldn't remember exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's after that happens that she says, like, I have to go. And again, Oscar's sad about that, but he does understand.
Yeah.
At that moment.
And she kisses him. They get one kiss. Mm-hmm. One bloody kiss.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she leaves.
Seemingly that's the end of their time together. For them.
Yeah.
Because, that, and then going back to what I was talking about with where they kind of reconvene is Oscar at home getting a call from one of Connie's cronies. Again, don't know which one's which, because the actors who play those kids don't have their pictures on IMDb, just the character name, and so I don't know how to attribute one name to one face. I don't know.
the two henchmen.
Yeah.
Connie's two henchmen. One of them, I feel like his name was Martin.
Because I know Jimmy. Yeah. Jimmy was Connie's older brother, I think.
Yeah, so I think it was Martin who called and encourages Oscar to come to training. Mm-hmm. The after-school fitness program. Yeah. Because I don't think Oscar was going to go, but then he decides to go, so he's there, but mischief is afoot.
Yeah, it's all just an ambush plan, which I love how they show the bathhouse from outside. And it shows that's what it means is bathhouse, but in Swedish, it's just bad. And I was like, yeah, no, that sums up exactly what's about to happen here. Yep. Something bad.
Bad is going to happen. Real bad. Because Connie and his brother Jimmy start a fire outside the dumpster.
A literal dumpster fire.
A literal dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm. Which distracts Avila, the coach.
Yep. And in comes Jimmy, Connie, and the henchman. One of the henchmen is already in there, just kind of playing games with Oscar, kind of trying to, like...
They make sure to focus on his tennis shoes and what they look like while he's doing his little running in place. For reasons.
Yes. Yeah, just reasons.
It was fun. And then, just talk about, that scene and that final shot. Jimmy's just terrible, because even Connie's kind of even at a point where he's like, okay, maybe this is a little too far. Yeah. This is a little too much. And I feel like, Connie's friends there, they were never really super into how far Connie went with Oscar a lot, but then they would do it anyway. So, they're still kind of at fault, but you could tell they were uncomfortable with it. The one kid that is left alive was the one that kind of had the hardest time with everything.
Yeah. He went over to the side and sat down and is just like almost covering his face.
Yeah.
Because basically Jimmy has told Oscar that he has to hold his breath for 3 minutes, he doesn't, he's going to stab his eye out. An eye for an ear is what he says. So I liked how this was shot.
Yeah.
Jimmy is holding Oscar's head under the water, and suddenly we see a decapitated head.
After those shoes get dragged across the top of the pool, which is fun. You're like, well, I know those shoes.
And then suddenly the hand that was holding Oscar's head, half the arm, ends up in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And Ely helps Oscar out of the pool.
Yeah.
And Andreas is the one that was left alive.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that shot is so haunting. Because now Ely and Oscar have left, and you just have the one kid who's like sitting on the bleachers, like sobbing. And you just see the crumpled blood and bodies and things just strewn about the pool, and it just focuses on that for a little bit, and then black. And you're like,
yeah.
Oh, man.
I know. I like that she left one of them alive.
Mm-hmm.
To have to live with it.
Yeah.
And realize that, mistreating people like that, you shouldn't be doing that. But then we get to the end, and what we have is Oscar on the train, traveling with a box beside him, tapping on the box in Morse code, because, as we haven't talked about, Oscar learned Morse code and taught it to Ely so they could communicate through the wall.
Yeah.
And so they are tapping on the box, and Ely taps the word she taps to Oscar is the Swedish word for kiss.
Yeah.
And then he taps back to her a small kiss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is sweet. Kind of.
It is.
Because then, like, the ending, if you don't look past anything, it's kind of a sweet ending. But then if you think about it at all, you're like, wait, I have questions.
Yeah.
I mean, Oscar's parents surely aren't signing off on, oh, you're just going to run away with this girl from next door, and y'all are going where, and who knows? Okay. Like, obviously, he's just, like, on the run, just left his family behind. She has money, we've seen that, but, like, it's going to be quite a journey for the rest of his life with her. And again, it makes me question, like, how is it also dark? Like, does he just become the next Hakon? I mean, he will continue to grow old while she doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. If you think about the big picture, it doesn't seem like a happy ending at all.
Yeah.
It seems like his life is going to be long and drawn out, and he's going to want to pour acid on his face and fall out a window.
Mm-hmm.
I hope not. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough.
Maybe, she turns him into a vampire, and they make some other vampire friends, and they all move into a big house in New Jersey together, and a documentary crew comes in to see what they're doing, and it's all a prequel to What We Do in the Shadows. That's really what this is.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I don't know about that, but maybe. That's a whole other vampire story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, things seem much more... There's a lot more levity in that story than what we see in this one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's all that I have, except for the cats. Because that was probably the part that actually made me laugh.
Yeah, cats.
Yes.
The way that cats react to vampires. So we get a look, because we see there's the candy store cat that's hissing and freaking out when Ely is standing outside the store.
Yes.
So we see that a little bit at first, but then
as we've said, Gesta has a lot of cats. And by a lot, I mean more than 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In his little apartment. Well, Ginnia wakes up and realizes that her skin reacts to the sun.
Mm-hmm.
What she doesn't realize is that the cats are going to react that way. And when she goes to Gesta's the cats all freak out and jump on her and attack her and bite her and chase her out the door. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
So if you're scared of vampires, get a bunch of guard cats. That's the that's the moral of this story.
Yeah, forget garlic. Forget garlic. It makes me think of The Gate. They just needed a bunch of cats, right?
There you go. Well, I mean, they weren't vampires. That was their mistake.
Yeah.
Poor Genia. No clue what was happening to her, and she's just being attacked by cats and taken away to the hospital and doesn't want to live like that. And, whatever it is, she doesn't like it, and she knows the sunlight's painful. I don't know if she expected to fully burst into flames like that, but damn, that's one way to go.
Well, she looked so pale and tired. I think she was hungry.
Yeah.
She needed to feed because she was becoming a vampire herself. And she needed to feed. She didn't really get to. She asked him to open the blinds because, she took that was the way out that she wanted to go.
All right. Well, I'm trying to think. I'm sure I've got some extra just kind of random notes. Some about Hakan. So dang Ricky, the dog, ruining everything.
That part with the acid where they show his face, that was real bad. That looked horrible.
Yeah.
In the best way. Like, they did a really good job on it.
Yeah, it was good. Before they revealed that he was still alive and was taken to the hospital and arrested, at first, because I thought he just killed himself that way, and I was like, yeah, I guess acid to the face is easier than trying to explain why you have a high school basketball player hanging upside down in a locker room with a funnel and a container underneath him.
Yeah, I don't know how you would even go.
Yeah, well, yeah, you see what happened. It's I can explain this. It's fully normal. Everything's fine. I swear.
Yeah.
We were playing a game. And he's bad at it. He's real bad at it.
Well, it's definitely not any testing that's on the president's physical fitness list.
Right. But let's see. Yeah, just some kind of notes about the school and the kids and the teacher. Like I said, it's like the famed Michael Jordan meme when I first met Connie and his friends. Fuck them kids.
Yeah. They were definitely not. They were not good. The good seed. They were definitely the bad seeds.
Yeah, I noticed in one scene the teacher reading The Hobbit to the class, which is a much, much better choice than the seemingly usual murder talk. So that's good.
I don't know how on earth they got on that subject. I mean, we're talking, let's see, 12 years old. What is that, 7th grade?
I do quick math on...
I think it's 7th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. What on earth were they doing talking to a police officer about death? I don't know.
I don't
Not just death, murder, and how to determine how someone died. Forensics, basically.
Right, yeah. All right, kids. Forensic class. We're children. It's okay. So they order... No. Man. Yeah, I think that is all the notes I have.
Excellent. Well, I feel like we have covered this movie. It was such a serious movie. I mean, serious in a different way. I mean, when we covered The Impossible, that was a really serious movie. This one is serious and dark in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is everything that I have. We have talked about it all, Pake.
All right. We're good at that.
Yeah.
Join us next week. I'm skipping ahead. We will talk all about more of this story in a different version, a different way.
Yes.
Double dips. Yay. And I'm excited to kind of go into that and see. Because again, it has been like 12 years since I've watched that one. So I will be looking to see if Matt Reeves gave any hint or nod to any of these themes in the original, or if he just straight up Americanized, butchered it, and was like, nah, we're not going to get deep or controversial at all, and I'm just going to tell the most surface basic story I can. I don't remember, so we'll see.
Well, yeah. I am going to tell you that John Ajvide Lindqvist, who wrote the novel, was happy with Reeves' version.
That is good.
So that's a good thing.
It's a good sign. Because, it's been so long. It's like, I remember I've seen the movie. I remember thinking it was good. And I remember thinking it was very interesting. But as far as any of the specifics of it, I'm like, I mean, I know there's certain scenes from this movie that they kind of did their own versions of in that movie. I do remember that they're there. But how deep they go into a lot of things, I don't remember. So I'm intrigued. I'm interested to dive back into that one, too.
I'm interested to watch it and see how it connects, especially because we're recording these in a in a shorter period of time than usual. Mm-hmm. So I think this one will still be fresh in my mind when we cover that one.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get to break that one down. That'd be cool.
All right. Well, before we wrap this episode up, you do have some fun trivia and behind the scenes, like production notes and stuff that you always find some fun stuff.
I do. And there's a lot for me to include next week. So I'm not covering all of it in this one.
All right.
These are specific to this movie, but there'll be a lot more like comparison pieces in next week's episode.
Cool.
So the film we talked about already takes place in the 1980s, actually 1982. This movie was voted Movie of the Year by Empire Magazine. It's the first time a foreign language film topped their list since City of God. Which, have you ever seen City of God, Pake?
No, I don't think so. I
feel like you need to see City of God. There's your homework. We're not covering it on the podcast because it doesn't fit, but watch City of God. It's incredible.
All right, I'll add it to my list of 7,000 other things
I know.
Actively trying to watch right now.
I know. It's a problem, right? Right. I have to keep going back and forth between things, and yeah. I did finish Our Flag Means Death, though. I finished that one, and I'm on to the next thing, trying to finish. Mm-hmm. But before I can do that, I'm going to talk more about these trivia items I have on this list. So, the word vampire is only said once in the movie. The film takes place in Blackburg, which is a suburb of Stockholm. But they did the photography in Luleå, which is in the north, because they wanted to make sure there was enough cold weather and snow, and it got that feeling of freezing. It definitely did. Mm-hmm. It was included among the 1001 movies you must see before you die, which was edited by Steven Schneider.
Unfortunately, I bet if I looked at that full list, there's plenty of them that I have not seen, I'm sure.
Yes. I think you could make a whole new list based on that.
That's a whole new podcast.
It is.
Going through that.
I know.
Take a while.
Yeah. So this film was the debut for both Lena Leandersson and Kåre Hedebrandt. Both were praised for their performances, and as I said earlier, neither has done much since 2012. They had several tricks to create these sound effects for some of the gory scenes. Biting into sausages was used to replicate biting into skin when Ely was feeding. Drinking yogurt was used to sound like drinking blood. And the sound of children blinking was made by the skin of grapes rubbing together in an almost blinking motion. I kind of want to see that and how that works. Right. Seems a little strange. The title of the film, as well as the novel, refers to the fact that, according to myth, vampires must be invited in before they can enter someone's home. The translated title of the book and the film, Let the Right One In, is taken from the lyrics to the song Let the Right One Slip In by Morrissey.
Nice.
Almost every scene in the movie contains the color red or red-orange. It's a clear reference to the color of blood, the only food that Ely can consume. Despite Oscar asking her twice, Ely never reveals how old she is. We talked about the Morse code, which was really, I thought, one of the cool things about this movie. Pake mentioned this already, that Ely is revealed to be Elias, a boy who was castrated when he was turned into a vampire 200 years ago. Late in production, it was decided that Lena Leandersson's voice would be replaced by a darker voice, because the character of Ely was supposed to be an androgynous boy who had been castrated. Leandersson's voice was considered too delicate and feminine. So Elif Kalan was chosen for her less feminine, more androgynous tone. Ely tells Oscar more than once that she is not a girl, both in reference to her being a vampire and the fact that she is a boy passing as a girl. And here is some fun knowledge, I think. A&E Studios ordered a series adaptation of the novel 2015. Although the parts were cast, TNT decided not to go forward with the series. However, in September 2021, Showtime issued a series order for a TV adaptation of the novel.
I'm intrigued to see where that goes, if that still happens. I will agree that I would much rather watch a Showtime adaptation than a TNT adaptation.
Yes,
so
me too.
I'm okay with that part of it, if that happens.
Because the bigger cable or premiere networks like Showtime, HBO, we talked about this before, they can do so much more than a network cable TV station can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I did check into it, and as far as what I have read, it's still a go. They're working on it.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
I would definitely watch it and check it out if it happens. I would hope that, that they still fully embrace the, source material and a lot of the themes and a lot of things. Like, I feel like they could really dig even deeper into a lot of that stuff with a series, and that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I think it could be kind of groundbreaking.
Yeah.
For TV. If they actually go through with it and stay true to the novel, it could be fantastic. It could be a discussion starter, probably.
Yeah.
And that is not a bad thing.
No.
But yeah, those are the notes that I have. That is it.
Nice.
I feel like we've covered this, Pake. We did it.
We did. We just got... Yeah, part one of this story, kind of in a way. Not that there's a sequel, but a different take on it, and that'll be fun to see what our thoughts and stuff are on that one, of course. But speaking of thoughts on things, though,
you had better get that feedback phone.
Gotta check the feedback phone and see what people thought of this one. All right, and we do have a little bit of feedback this week for this movie. And who's going to come through for us? Of course, our good friend on Twitter, Tony. And she has to say, "Hi, Pake and Daphne. I wanted to say hi and let you know that I've been listening, although I'm weeks behind. But this movie I wanted to let you know I'm excited for. I read the book and have seen both this movie and the American version. This version is more like the book. The book was so disturbing and disgusting. I've read a lot of horror, but this one was eek. I think the young actors did an amazing job. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I can't offer much input. I'm looking forward to reliving it through your conversation."
Oh, Tony, yes.
That's awesome. Yes, and thanks. That's really cool that you are familiar with like the source material. You read the original book. That's really cool. And yeah, as you've now heard, as we've talked about this movie through this episode, we did talk a lot about the similarities of the book and this movie and a lot of those themes and things that they really stuck with, and how I could see how you said the book is pretty disturbing, because we did talk about how the book goes much more into detail on some of the very disturbing and kind of aspects of those themes and things. So yeah, I can imagine the book is probably quite a dark read.
Yeah, I kind of want to read it, and I think I mentioned that, but I'm not in the right frame of mind for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thanks again for writing in on this. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and you said you did watch the American version, so if you get a chance to rewatch or just have some thoughts about it still that you know of, I hope to hear back from you next week, part 2 of this double dip. But thanks for listening. Yeah. I know you said you have been listening, you're there. Even if you haven't given as much feedback or been, people get behind. We talk about that a lot. We're like,
we do.
It's hard to stay on top of a lot of podcasts and things. So the fact that you're listening, just that, and alone means a lot to us. And we thank you so much for that.
Yeah, definitely. And if you'd like to submit feedback like Tony, you can go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. Tweet at us at RFYL Podcast. DM us on Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much all the other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to Run For Your Lives podcast for all the links you'll ever need. And give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. And talking about sharing the love, of course, give some shout outs to the podcast universe around us. My other podcast, Strange Indeed. We are back on the flagship show of that podcast. We are covering Stranger Things, season 4, as it's been out this week, the most recent one that we have released. Episode 4 of season 4, which I'm not going to give anything away, but if you know, you know. Maybe, I mean, you know, the best episode of the season so far, and maybe, as I said on there, the best episode of the entire series so far.
Agreed.
I really had a lot of things to say about some things in that episode. Just incredible. So we had an awesome conversation, emotional conversation, and really good one about that episode. I'm loving what Stranger Things is doing this season.
Me too. It's creepier, but it's also very deep. And the connections that you can make with what you're watching.
Yeah.
And there are metaphors. It's just, yeah. It's pretty incredible. I'm enjoying following along with you and Rima. It's a trip.
Yeah. I was surprised that we found out that there are a lot more people than I thought there would be that are watching week to week with us instead of just binging the whole thing, which is so hard not to do. I know. So
it is.
So the fact that there's actually a good amount of people who are waiting and watching one episode a week to stay with us on the podcast is quite humbling. It means a lot. It's really cool. But yeah, it takes a lot of dedication. So I appreciate that for the Strange Indeed listeners who are doing so.
Well, this is your first time, because you are now the co-host with Rima on Strange Indeed.
Yeah, the first 3 seasons were with Sean, yeah.
So this is new, having to wait.
I started being the official co-host of Strange Indeed the same week that we launched this podcast. So
yes.
I've been with Strange Indeed as long as anybody who's listening to this podcast
yes.
has heard me. But yeah, but relatively kind of in the grand scheme of things, that for that podcast, it's been around since season 2 of Stranger Things, because they kind of went through the first 2 together when they wanted to podcast about it. But, podcast has been around that long for me to, I've been on it since, this one started. So almost 2 years.
Yes.
We're coming up on it.
We are. Yeah. Because I think it was the same day that we decided to, it was the same day.
Yeah.
Because you even told me, you said, I went from having no podcast to having 2 podcasts.
Yeah. Because when we decided we're going to record this day, and then I was like, also, I was just talking to Rima and she needs a new co-host and I'm going to officially do it. So it was, right together. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm having a blast doing both. So yeah, it's
good.
It's so much fun. Anyway, other stuff is going on. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Holy crap. That's been
it's so
amazing.
good.
There's only one episode left. I don't know what this finale is going to be like.
I know.
Oh, I can't wait.
But they've done so well with the entire season, which I know it's only going to be 6 episodes, but they've done such a great job. I can't imagine them not sticking the landing.
Exactly. It's so good. For the Star Wars nerd in me is just so happy. I say the Star Wars nerd in me like it's a hidden dark, secret
it's not
part of me.
A hidden.
No. The Star Wars nerd that is me is really loving it.
Yeah. Having just spent, almost a week with you in Las Vegas, the nerd that is in you is there.
Yes.
So, yeah. Embrace it.
Mm-hmm. So, of course, if you want to hear that coverage of Obi-Wan Kenobi, definitely check out the Star Wars TV cast, which is part of House Podcastica as well. Go over there and check that out. Rich, Eric, Jason, and Jonathan are cycling through 3 out of those 4, covering each episode. I don't remember who's on the latest one or who's going to be on the next week, but it's going to be 3 of those 4 guys, and they're all killing it. So either way, it's going to be really good. I think the newest episode that's coming up actually is without Jason, which is interesting.
Yes.
I think it is just Rich, Eric, and Jonathan on that one, but
yeah, they have a similar rotating host schedule that we have with Yellow Jackets.
Mm-hmm.
And it works really well because you have your core group, and Just cycle in and out, and it works out pretty well.
Yeah. So check that out for sure. And then let's see. For Panels to Pixels, you can check out their coverage of The Boys Season 3 as those are coming out. And then Miss Marvel, which episode 2 was this week. They should be releasing that soon. Man, yeah, Miss Marvel has been really good too. A lot of Disney Plus, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel series, they've been killing it with all of them. I'm loving all of it. So Tuesday night / Wednesday morning has been a lot of fun for me with like Kenobi and Miss Marvel back to back. I'm having good times with that.
Do you feel like they, with Disney Plus, they just reach into your head and pull out and just compile what all the fans want and give it to you on a silver platter?
I kind of feel like that's exactly what they're doing right now. So that coverage over on Panels to Pixels, which also special episode 200, Panels to Pixels, is up. We teased it last week, and now we can officially say now that it's out. Yes, Mark Kirkman over there got an interview with the one, the only Kevin Smith.
It's fantastic.
The fat man on Smodcast himself. Yeah, it's really cool. So that's incredible. He managed to get Kevin Smith, had an interview with him, great conversation with him over on Panels to Pixels. So check that out for sure to listen to Mark and Kevin talk.
Yeah, congratulations to Panels to Pixels on reaching episode 200. I've been a part of that, covering Snowpiercer with Steve. So it's pretty exciting that it's reached episode 200.
That is, it's really cool. I've done a few episodes of Panels here and there. And it's always a good time. Mark's such a great guy. And I'm so happy for him that he got this Kevin Smith interview. It's
awesome.
All right. And then speaking of The Boys and Miss Marvel, you can also check out coverage of those shows over on TV Podcast Industries as well. Great podcasters, great shows. Those guys work so hard and putting out so much stuff. They're just incredible podcasters, so definitely go check out their coverage. And that's really it for this week. A lot of other podcasts are kind of on off weeks and stuff this week. So go catch up on those things. Lots of great stuff to listen to. But I think we've already talked about it a little bit. People know. But just in case they need a reminder, what's going on next week right here on Run for Your Lives?
Well, when 12-year-old Owen meets his new neighbor, the mysterious, ageless Abby, strange things start happening all around him. Different movie, but the henchman is still unable to deliver the sustenance she needs without botching the job. Though not quite as dark, the second movie in our double dip is the Matt Reeves directed film Let Me In, the 2010 reimagining of the 2008 Swedish film we covered this week.
Yeah. Dibble dip. We're doing it. So
I know. I love it.
We covered the original movie, I guess, that came out, 2008. And then, we have Let Me In. The American version was made 2 years later that we'll cover next week. And so, look forward to that. I'd love to hear what anybody has to think or say about that one. We'll have a fun time breaking that movie down a little bit, and it will be a little bit more compare and contrast with, the differences between that movie and this movie that we just talked about. Do a little bit more, comparing now that we've seen both of them.
Yes.
But we give its due on just talking about that movie and what it has to offer on its own as well. So I love these double dips. They're a lot of fun. It was cool to do this again. So tune back in next week to get the second part of this double dip and see what the American version, what Matt Reeves had to do with this story.
I know. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys check it out. With that, we've reached the end of another bloody fun episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.